What up guys and gals, Dean here. This is another Friendly Faces of Warwickshire event information video, this time on the subject of the Welcombe Hills Walk, which takes place this coming Sunday the 9th of July. So it's the second walk out of Stratford upon Avon so far this year, or out of Stratty, as some of the Warwickshire gangsters call it. So what I'm going to be talking about in this video is a reminder of the important things to bring, and I'll also talk about the walk itself, including the route and also a little bit of history on some of the landmarks that we'll see along the way so that you know what to look out for. So just before I get started, I want to say thank you to Alex, Ed and Ira, who came with me last night to scope the walk route out. So we now know a few things about it ahead of the walk for real on Sunday, and what we discovered will contribute to a better planned walk. So thank you very much guys. So let's start this video with what to bring. So those who've joined in on a Friendly Faces of Warwickshire walk before, you'll probably already know from experience what things to pull together ahead of the day to bring with you. If however you are a first timer, and it looks like there'll be several first-timers this Sunday, which is great, then please take note of the following list of essential things to bring. So number one, a decent pair of walking shoes. So I've shown you my shoes before. They aren't traditional walking boots as they don't have the ankle protection around the top, but they are sturdy. Certainly more sturdy than your average pair of trainers. So it's worth noting that around the pathways in the Welcombe Hills there is plenty of long grass to drag your feet through. And obviously there are some hills, amazingly, including one or two steep bits, so your footwear will need to handle those things. And there's also a few areas at the bottom of some of the hills that are dry at the moment, as we saw last night, but would be quite muddy if it's wet. Number two, a bottle of water to stay hydrated. At least half a litre is a good idea, because we'll be out walking for a few hours. Number three, a sandwich with your favourite filling. So if your sandwich making skills are up to scratch, then definitely make that yourself. So maybe we'll find a nice break spot along the way to sit down and we'll all eat our sandwiches. Number four, an emergency banana. As I'm sure you'd agree, it's very important to have an emergency banana with you at all times. Number five, a rucksack to put all those things in so that your hand's free. And of course, don't forget your shades and a hat in case it gets sunny. So we are in the middle of summer after all, and also don't forget your sun cream. And number seven, the final thing to put in your bag is a waterproof jacket. And that's in case it rains. Ideally just a flimsy one that you can roll up into a ball like this one, so that it doesn't take up much space. So that is the list of essential things to bring. So let's talk about the route. So we will walk northeast out of the centre of Stratford along the river. Very nice and scenic along there, and we'll come out at Fisherman's Car Park. We'll then cross the Warwick Road. We all need to be very careful when we do that, because the limit along there is 50 miles an hour, so lots of looking left and right before we cross. We'll then walk up the beaten paths to the topmost area of the hills, and then come back down a slightly different route, cross over the road again, back along the river, and then we're done. So with the help of Google Earth, I estimate that that is around about 6 or 7 miles in total. So those who came to the Stratford Greenway walk a few weeks ago when we walked south out of town, remember that the walk was originally intended to be about 6 or 7 miles then as well, and we had the option of going a bit further. So we got to the point along the walk where we had to collectively make the call as to whether we would carry on a bit or to turn back, and everyone was happy to carry on, which is what we did. So we extended the route by a few more miles. So as we discovered last night, the Welcombe Hills route will be the same. So the land is laid out in a sort of figure 8 shape in terms of the pathways. So we'll go up into the middle, check out the obelisk, which will cover half of the figure 8, and then when we get back to the centre we will decide if we're going to go back down and call it a day, or if we were up to doing another half of the figure 8 before we go back down. So we can make a call about that when we get up there. So that is a very general description of the route that I've mapped out. And so to the history on this route. So there are a number of historical landmarks that we will pass and can have a good look at. There is the Clopton Tower, which was apparently converted into a residential building in the 1990s, so there is someone living there, but still looks awesome. There is the swimming pool, some very interesting facts to talk about on that one. There's Margaret's Well, which it's thought may have provided the inspiration for one of Shakespeare's plays. And of course, the obelisk. Very hard to miss that. As you'll see as we go along the walk route on Sunday from the centre of Stratford, even from the point that we set off several miles away, you can still see the obelisk on the hill in the distance. It's 120 feet tall, and it was built from 2 types of sandstone in the year 1876 at a cost of £7,000, which in today's money is about £200,000. And it was built by a guy called Robert Needham Phillips, and he built it to honour his brother Mark Phillips, a few years after he died, who previously owned the Welcombe estate. So he was a highly respected member of Parliament in the early 1800s and apparently donated money to a lot of good causes, including to the provisioning of open spaces and parks in various places in the north. So I didn't realise it when we were there yesterday, but having researched it today, there are apparently inscriptions from the family on each of the sides of the obelisk, which I'll certainly want to look at closer when we're there on Sunday. So unfortunately it's surrounded by a fence and some nettles, but you can certainly walk up close to the bottom of it and have a good look up. So I'm not sure if the inscriptions are going to be visible through all the fence and nettles, but if we can get close enough to see them, we'll have a look. So there's also a local legend that says that during the Second World War, a German bomber, on his way home from a bombing attack in Coventry, saw the obelisk and thought it was a communication tower, so he dropped a bomb on it. Fortunately, just missing, but leaving a giant crater in the ground. So people say it's hard to figure out whether there are any craters in the land nearby to establish whether this legend is true, but it's an interesting story all the same, and we'll have a look for craters when we get up there. Anyway, that's enough on the history. Let's get back to the walk. So don't forget your rucksack, of course, and the all-important things from the essentials list to put in it. Also, what we did at the end of the Stratford Greenway walk, which ended in the same place as this one will, was head to the very awesome Cox's Yard bistro-style pub by the bridge in Stratford. We dragged a few tables and chairs together, sat down and had a well-earned rest and a good old chinwag, and some people even ordered drinks and a bit of food. And with that section of the day stuck on the end, to me it felt like 2 meetups for the price of one, so that was a bonus. And for those who want to do that again this time, it's not compulsory, and use it to wrap up the weekend nicely before we get back in the cars and go home, then that's exactly what we'll do. So if there's anyone from out of town who wants to attend and maybe doesn't have their own transport, maybe doesn't want to rely on the flaky public transport that you get on a Sunday, why not pop a message on the event page, because there's usually a couple of generous people attending who'd be happy to give you a lift if they knew you were in need of one. So the meet place is the same as it was for the Greenway Walk, which is the Recreation Ground car park, postcode Charlie Victor 377 Lima Sierra. The entrance to the car park is beside the Bear pub, so go past the pub, all the way to the end of the car park, and there's a field at the end that has been converted into an overflow car park, because it does get quite busy down there. So we'll all set off from that overflow car park at 1 PM, as it says on the event, so unless you want to get left behind this time, make sure you plan to get in and get parked in advance of 1 PM, so that we can all leave on time together. So just to wrap up this video and remind you that exactly the same as the last few walks we've done, this is a hiking event. It's not just a lazy stroll in the park. We're covering several miles here, and up and down undulating hills this time, so running out of energy halfway around would not be good. So please make sure you've got a good level of physical fitness, because on Sunday you're going to use it. So another great outdoorsy and active Sunday afternoon in store. Fresh air in your lungs, the wind in your hair, and some wonderful scenery to take in. And you don't have to imagine how good you'll feel afterwards. So I'm looking forward to getting together with you all on Sunday. Until then, Dean out.